Both President Museveni and President of Gabon earlier reminding us about the people. And my point about the people is that the people need sustainable livelihoods. An elephant dead is not a sustainable livelihood. It's a one-off hit for one person to get some income, contribute something illicitly taken to a criminal syndicate, and on it goes. That elephant alive will just generate so much opportunity for a community and for a country. So I think we come here mobilised and motivated around this very, very great cause. Now, I want to mention two significant developments at the United Nations last year relevant to the protection of wildlife. The first was that heads of government, including the three with us today, came to the major summit where the Sustainable Development Goals were launched in September. And one of those goals has specific targets which are aimed at stopping the poaching and trafficking of protected species of flora and fauna. That's our wildlife and our forests and our wetlands, which are of such interest to President Museveni. So this reflects the importance which member states are placing on addressing the global wildlife crisis across the source countries, the transit countries, and the recipient countries. But just before the SDGs were launched, there was a very similar and strong message from the General Assembly. It adopted last July its first ever resolution on tackling illicit trafficking of wildlife. The General Assembly expressed serious concern over the steady rise of poaching and of the illegal trade. It called for urgent action to put in place integrated approaches which fully reflect all those linkages between poaching and trafficking and the need to eradicate poverty, maintain biodiversity, see these incredible natural assets as important also for economic growth and for the sustainable livelihoods. And I commend Gabon and Germany and the more than 80 other co-sponsors who hammered away at this resolution. It took years of advocacy, but it passed. And I think this resolution, combined with a very clear sustainable development goal, really give that global mandate, that global platform for action. And the challenge we all see now is continuing to put these sort of commitments to work in Africa to secure a future for the great gentle giants of the continent. It is going to require, as many have said, political will, financial resources, technical capacity, and let me also emphasise the very big partnerships needed between the governments here on the continent, the international partner governments, the civil society organisations, the NGOs, the business sector, everyone who can contribute to this cause. So, we have platforms for action, we have agendas, but things have to happen. And for UNDP, if I come to specifically where our interests lie in supporting, we, of course, benefit very greatly from the support of the Global Environment Facility and of a number of partners. And we do see it important to be working with others allied to the cause. And in the course of my remarks, I'll refer to important partnerships with the World Bank, the Global Environment Facility, the UN Office of Drugs and Crime, and with UNEP, the UN Environment Programme. And I think what unites us is work around three key areas. One, addressing rural poverty and creating opportunities for sustainable livelihoods. We can't save our wildlife or indeed our forests and our wetlands unless we directly address the issue of poverty and alternative and legitimate livelihoods. Secondly, we bring to the party strengths in governance and law enforcement. We have a long track record of working in these areas on law reform, fighting corruption, and building the capacity of institutions, including of prosecutors' offices and judiciary. And then there's that issue which has been stressed time and time again today, reducing the demand for the illegal wildlife products. And with our global presence, we are well placed to advocate for that. On this continent, we have been partners in Kenya with the Wildlife Service and with NGOs, in particular in the Amboseli Chulu ecosystem. And we see there, as we see elsewhere in Kenya and in other countries on the continent, how important the community-based natural resource management is. And we heard such an eloquent presentation earlier today about the importance for the community of being engaged in what is happening. In Central Africa, we've long supported conservation programs for the forest elephants and their habitat in the Tri-Dom tropical wilderness in the Gabon, Congo, Cameroon interzone. We've been active in Botswana, in Uganda, in Namibia, and in Tanzania. So a track record and experience on the continent. And now we're increasing the support we can give to the regional frameworks, which are aimed at addressing these critical issues. The new African Union Common Strategy on Illegal Wildlife, launched in Brazzaville last year, and then ratified by the African Union and African Ministerial Conference on the Environment. And I commend the leadership of the African leaders in getting these common strategies and frameworks in place. Coming to new areas of activity and commitments, there is a new global wildlife program being launched, spearheaded and financed by the GEF, in which we will be a leading partner with the World Bank and our fellow UN partners. And under that program, and working with African governments and other non-governmental and civil society partners, we're beginning now to program $60 million of new GEF funding to frontline conservation on the continent. And the focus of the work will be in two areas: one on incentives for conservation, like new community-run conservancies and better managed protected areas. But we also want to focus on the disincentives, which is tackling poaching through more effective law enforcement, improving the capacity of the judicial systems, and having stronger wildlife laws and policies. This work will include support to what we're calling a Ports of Excellence initiative, and this is aimed at tackling trafficking at ports between Africa, the Middle East and Asia, and boosting South-South cooperation between countries to tackle this issue. So, in conclusion, Madam Secretary and Presidents, the attention of so many influential people and organisations here today is a very important step forward in the crusade around saving Africa's gentle giants and wildlife and habitats. And if we work together and effectively, I hope we can see all the aspirations of the strategies, frameworks, goals that are out there around this. But as was emphasised so eloquently earlier, the hour is late. It is very late. And let us be sure in future, as we look back on this time, that we know that we did as much as we could when we could before it was too late. Thank you.